It started like a lot of big things do, but it started with something small, and with this piece of paper that I cut out of a newsletter that was sent to broadcasters in Michigan. 1 year and counting until NATIS Michigan member Frida War of Marquette plans to lead the first all-female expedition to the North Pole. Until she's ready to mush the Huskies, she's busy at her business, lining up more corporate sponsors for her May 1995 polar trek, which she'll tape for a documentary. Not without me, she wouldn't. The butterfly flapped its wings in California, and 7 years later, I ended up at the North Pole. But the things I learned on the way to the North Pole. First off, I learned to follow my heart and not other people's opinions. When I mentioned that I was thinking about doing this, people said, "You can't go. What do you know about this? You're not ready. You're not prepared. You're too..." Fill in the blank. Old was one of them. And my mother also raised concerns. Now, believe me, it's not easy to fight against your mother when she's worried about your safety. But my heart was taking me there. It was something I had to be a part of. So learning to follow my heart and not let my life be led by others became very important. I learned also that training and education helps us tackle the things that we've never done before. Otherwise, we would never advance as a people, as a civilization, or as individuals. With that training, we could do it. This kid from Niles 49120 could be at the North Pole, could stand there, look around for Santa, maybe find Superman in the fortress, I don't know. But with training we could do it. So people did wisely point out that I had never camped overnight outside. That I certainly had never eaten outside in the cold for long periods of time. That I was a pretty lousy skier. But you know what? I had my heart. And with training, Frida War and I decided we could do that. So she put me in touch with people because I had called her immediately. In fact, the phone number's still here. I'd called her immediately after I read that piece in the newsletter. And I'm sure I was a fire hydrant with all kinds of questions and energy. And she said, "Slow down. Here's the person you need to talk. He will talk with you." I thought, he? He? This is an all-women expedition. But I'm a good one for following rules. So I called him, and it was interesting, and he was putting this together. At the end of the day, not surprisingly, it didn't come together. But Frida and I said, this is too good an idea to let things pass. So we said, we know, we'll put on a show ourselves. Just like Mickey and Judy Garland, we can do this. Let's put on a show. So we formed our own corporation, got our tax ID, and then we realized, well, that was just two of us, that's not very much of a team. So we set about finding others with a simple desire as we to be at the North Pole. And we did. We ended up with 12 going to the North Pole. And training and education got us there. It became important, too, that we share our vision and that we simply not do it just for ourselves. Okay, here's my bucket list. North Pole, check. Kilimanjaro, that looks pretty good. Check, next. No, we are educators, many of us, who ended up going. And we wanted to take this experience and to extend it beyond to give others the chance. So we met with students. Let me share with you some things while I'm talking. We met with middle school students because it became really important, and we realized that they were the ones who often lose interest in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we wanted to reach out to them and to show that they too could set a goal and follow their desires. Let's see if I can still get into this. I shouldn't have had that cookie for lunch. So what we did, we contacted them. We put together a curriculum based on Michigan curriculum frameworks. And then we met with them, met with them in schools. Woo! And Lent is just around the corner. So we met with them in schools. We put the curriculum up. And we also had 2 satellite telephones that we took with us to the North Pole so we could talk with children in their classrooms while we were skiing to the North Pole. Tremendous. We also ended up doing a webcast from the North Pole, but more about that in just a minute. This is a great Halloween costume, by the way. It's lasted a lot of years. I learned that managing people can be a full-time job. Now, mind you, I had a full-time job as a professor already, but managing people can require a lot of attention. Someone once told me that it's the ants that destroy the picnic. There's some truth in that. Keeping people together, dealing with their concerns, their idiosyncrasies, their personality orders and disorders, was a real challenge at times, especially in an environment in which the Russians say, the Arctic wants you dead. There was not much margin for error. So managing people took, I think, a lot of energy out of me, maybe more than I expected. Mounting an expedition, clothing alone, takes more energy also than I thought. Someone had told me this will run about 600 touches. I said, what's a touch? And they said, well, you know, it's the phone call, it's the email, it's the using the web, the internet, all those. It's about 600 to put on an expedition such as this. Little did I know that figure would be trebled to about 1,800 different contacts with people to make sure that it all came together. One of the most interesting ones was when I was in my office in this building upstairs, one floor, about 4 weeks before we were set to head to the North Pole, and I get a phone call. And at the other end of the line is someone who identifies himself as NASA Mike. Okay, yeah. NASA Mike. Sure. He said, I understand that you are putting together an expedition to go to the North Pole, and we think that's really terrific because we like to deal with science and math and education and engineering and technology for students, especially girls. So what if we fly to the North Pole and meet you there, and we'll do a webcast? Oh no, not another Mickey and Judy. So I said, well, how much is this going to cost? And he came up with a figure of $90,000. Fundraising is not my long suit. So, but you know, I wanted to at least try, and I thought maybe there was a NASA patch in it for me. So I said, NASA Mike, how about if I call you back in a week? Delay, delay, delay. I did, and I said, Mike, I'm really sorry, it's a wonderful idea, but we just can't do it. He said, no. He said, I got the price down. I said, I'm talking to the government here? And he, far more clever than I, was able to raid a number of budgets. And so for $20,000, thank you TIAA-CREF, my retirement fund, we met at the North Pole and we did a webcast back worldwide, but directed most specifically to students here in Michigan and in the United States generally, showing them that we could be at the North Pole. They too could follow their own dreams, their own desires, and be there as well. It's important, I think, also to consult with people before you make big decisions. Remember that webcast? Our Russian trainer was not terribly thrilled about it. It wasn't his idea. Dear friend of mine, but Russian male ego? So he was not cooperative once we were at the North Pole to try to make sure that NASA's airplane could meet up with our helicopter so we could do the webcast. And I realized that I was facing someone at the North Pole who was commanding the situation. We were in a tent, and he was telling me no. And I thought, I can't let this dream go. I turned to someone next to me who happened to be a 747 pilot. And I said, Steve, can we do this? We talked it over, and he said yes. I turned back to Misha, and I said, we're going, and we're going now. Consulting independently with someone was a really important lesson for me. I've learned that 2 people should sign checks and not 1. I'll let that one go. What else did I learn going to the North Pole? Oh, never skimp on equipment. Really important. If you think 2 will do, make sure that you have 1 and 2 and 3. Because I'll never get this back on. Because equipment is really important. Good equipment for not only your comfort, but your safety really matters. Great oven mitt. There were other lessons I learned as well. See if I can come up with them here for you. Learn when to listen and when to make a decision. we operated by consensus, and our agreement was that we would all make it to the North Pole. That the deal was we would all go there, or none of us would touch the North Pole. A moving target, by the way, because it's on us. But having decided that consensus was the way we would go forward, at some point, decisions had to be made. And so learning the balance between when to listen, when to stop listening, and when to move forward is critical. Lee Iacocca once said, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I also learned that God has made a wonderful world, and He's made us stewards of this world. We're not doing necessarily a terribly good job. What we experienced there were breaks in the ice, leads as they are called. And sometimes we would have to ski 1 or 2 miles before it was narrow enough for us to go across on our skis. 60, 70, 80, 200 years ago, that wasn't the case. We are finding that maybe next time when we go, we can take our bathing suits. I learned that I'm fallible, and that was a very valuable lesson to learn. I can make mistakes. I'm entitled to make mistakes, but I need to own up to them. Owning them, accepting them, apologizing them, and then making repairs, retribution, whatever comes is really important. But owning one's mistakes is really critical. That was a lesson I think that was hard for me to learn, and yet that's one of my takeaways, that I am fallible. My mother was a great adventurer, and she would often quote Rosalind Russell, who in Auntie Mame, the movie, said, the water buffalo are waiting at the gate. And it was explained to us children, I'm the oldest of 3, that meant the adventures were out there to be had. The water buffalo are waiting at the gate. It means that we are given a wonderful opportunity. We are given life on this great planet, and we need to take and to seize as much as possible, to expand and to enjoy what's been given to us, and to share it, just as we did with the curriculum with the students. Just as we enjoyed for our own benefit and our own growth and our own lesson learning, what it means to try and to test oneself in a very harsh environment. I hope for all of us that when we are through, that when we are called home, we can say we left everything we had on the floor. Amen.